What's going on, knuckleheads? This is George with Fighters Rep, and this is our Sergey Kovalev versus Anthony Yarde preview prediction. This is a fantastic fight, almost a crossroads fight. If you're a big boxing fan, especially a hardcore boxing fan, you know exactly what I mean. We've got a 28-year-old unbeaten contender in Anthony Yarde from the UK traveling over to Chelyabinsk, Russia, to take on the WBO light heavyweight champion Sergey Kovalev, who is a 36-year-old pugilist at this point. He's fought the who's who in boxing's light heavyweight division, and this is an absolutely thrilling affair and an interesting fight if you are a boxing fan. Even if you're not a hardcore boxing fan, this is a fight that I suggest you tune into because these are both guys that bring a lot of power, a lot of knockouts, and a lot of knockdowns. One interesting statistic I was looking at was the fact that Anthony Yarde has actually at 18-0. So let's go ahead. Let's look at the tail of the tape between these two fantastic fighters. And at the end, I'm going to give you guys my prediction. And then we're going to transition to what you guys think about the fight, what you guys think is going to happen. Obviously, this is a forum for discussion. So excited to hear what you guys have to say about it. But let's dig in to the tail of the tape. And before I continue, be sure if you like to talk about combat sports to subscribe below. Get your Fighters Rep gear in the links below, or donate. So first things first, knuckleheads, let's take a look at the records. There's a huge gap in experience here. You've got a 33-3-1 Sergey Kovalev going up against an 18-0 Anthony Yarde, and we're talking about more than double the amount of fights for Kovalev. Of course, he has 3 losses. 2 are to the arguable debatable best pound-for-pound fighter at one time, Andre Ward. If you ask me, he was the man at one time. Excuse me. While Floyd Mayweather was fighting, I would have given it to Floyd Mayweather, but I think while he was active, at the very least, he was second best to Floyd Mayweather. And when Floyd Mayweather was retired, Andre Ward was the number 1 pound-for-pound. They had 2 fights, Kovalev and Ward did. The first fight went to a decision, very close. I thought Kovalev won that fight, but the referee scored it for Ward, or rather the judges did, in a controversial win. Ward beat him decisively in the second fight, knocking him out to the body. Kovalev has also lost to Eleider Alvarez not too long ago in what looked like a fight that spelled the end for his career, but Kovalev was actually able to come back and avenge that loss, showing that he's still got something left. And he has a tie on his record as well. I don't quite remember what that tie is from, but nonetheless, 33-3-1, very experienced at the top against the elite of the division, beating the best guys and staying in there with the best guy at one point in Andre Ward. Of course, eventually losing in the rematch, but definitely that first fight was a close one versus an 18-0 Anthony Yarde. Now, this experience gap is going to mean something. This will mean something in this fight. You know, Kovalev is 36 years old. That's going to come into play. Anthony Yarde is 28 years old and very strong and very fast. But Kovalev has shown that he's still very strong and definitely fast enough to compete. So I don't know. I don't know if Kovalev will age overnight for this fight. But let's continue on with the tail of the tape before we get to our prediction. So obviously Kovalev with the experience advantage. Knockouts, we've got 28 knockouts for Kovalev, 17 for Yarde. Now, take into consideration, Yarde is 17 knockouts out of 18 fights. Kovalev is 28 out of 37, both with a very high knockout ratio. Obviously, Yarde with a much better one at this point, but Kovalev's nothing to balk at. And considering the opposition he's faced, some of the best in the world, 28 knockouts is extremely impressive for Kovalev. As far as the height goes, we've got both men listed at 6 feet tall, so I don't think that's going to be an issue at all here. And as far as reach goes, I do see Kovalev listed at 72 and a half, and I did find online that Anthony Yarde was listed at 72, so, almost identical as far as their bodily proportions go, with Kovalev seeming to have a slight reach advantage. And, the stance, they're both orthodox fighters, so nothing special there. So, I mean, just looking at the tail of the tape before we head into our prediction, you've got a guy in Anthony Yarde who's younger and seemingly stronger, versus a guy who may be heading into the twilight of his career but is significantly more experienced. And another thing that really stands out for me in this fight is the fact that, well, there are a couple things, but one is the resume. The resume of Sergey Kovalev, it includes Andre Ward despite the losses. It includes Bernard Hopkins. You're talking about Jean Pascal, just a bunch of tough guys on Sergey Kovalev's resume, versus Anthony Yarde, whose most significant wins are versus guys who, respectfully, I mean, I can't even pronounce their name and don't even know who they are. This is a massive step up for the UK fighter in Anthony Yarde to fight against Sergey Kovalev in Chelyabinsk, Russia. And if you're looking at the odds, I believe OddsShark has this at minus 160 for Kovalev, and it looks like some of the other sites like Bovada have it a minus 170 for Kovalev. Now, that's not a huge advantage by any means, but it makes sense. You've got, again, a young, surging Anthony Yarde who doesn't really have experience, though, and is going into the belly of the beast by heading into Chelyabinsk, Russia to fight Sergey Kovalev, an always dangerous fighter. And then you've got Sergey Kovalev, who's got a ton of experience, big resume, big power, fighting at home. It's just, if you ask me, I think the odds makers are right on this one. I think the safe bet here, if you're, trying to figure out who's going to win, is Kovalev. But I think if you're at the sports book and you want to take a chance, it might be a good time to take a chance on Anthony Yarde. And I say that because later Alvarez was able to basically knock Kovalev out in his most recent loss. And Anthony Yarde is a big, strong, fast kind of guy who could produce that same result. And he may have seen, or his team may have seen something in Kovalev, may have found a chink in the armor to go ahead and expose. Maybe they think they could finish him. They're talking about trying to get the knockout. If that is what they're going after, then Anthony Yarde definitely seems to have the power and speed to do that. He also seemingly has great movement and defense, but at this weight against a guy like Kovalev, a big, strong puncher, I'm not sure how effective his sort of Mayweather-esque defense is going to be. He does do a lot of these Mayweather-type drills and things like that during his practices and in his workouts that you can see all over YouTube. And, it's going to be interesting to see how that comes into play against Kovalev. He's definitely, got good reflexes and a lot of power. But he also carries a lot of muscle, and that could be problematic in a fight against a very naturally strong Kovalev, who seemingly has a pretty good gas tank. So, who do I think is going to win this fight? Well, first, let me tell you guys what I think each guy needs to do to win this fight. If you're Anthony Yarde, I think you need to go in to this fight. You need to go to the body the way Andre Ward did. You need to really invest in the body, get Kovalev to drop his hands and then crack him in the head, or maybe just finish him to the body if you can do that. But you've also got to be smart and preserve your energy, because Anthony Yarde is a muscle-bound dude, and that muscle is going to require a lot of blood and oxygen, and he doesn't want to wear himself out. So He's got to go to the body. He's got to switch up his attack, body head, body head. And if he sees an opening, he definitely should take it and try to go for the knockout. Kovalev may be getting up there in age to the point where he's vulnerable to a knockout. And he's got to be, conscious about not gassing himself out. If you're Sergey Kovalev, I think you want to keep this fight on the outside. Sergey Kovalev has definitely shown that he doesn't like to fight on the inside against an aggressive guy in Andre Ward. You want to stay on the outside. You want to use your long jab, your long two. You want to definitely land those power shots that you have, and just box. I think Kovalev is best chance in this fight is just box from the outside. Doesn't have much of a reach advantage, has a slight one, but still he's got to use that experience, box from the outside, set a good pace that he believes he can keep up throughout the entirety of the fight, and wear Yarde down. I think if he takes Yarde to the latter rounds, he could drown him in those deep waters. So, Knuckleheads, as far as my prediction goes, I got to go with Sergey Kovalev. I think the odds makers, again, are right on this one. It's just too much too soon for Anthony Yarde, who I believe needs to be commended in not only accepting this fight, but accepting to go to Chelyabinsk, Russia, to fight Sergey Kovalev for this WBO title. He's definitely not going to get any kind of advantage if it goes to decision in Chelyabinsk, Russia. And he's going to another person's hometown. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of hostility out there in Russia for Anthony Yarde coming in to fight their guy from the UK. So I just think it's a little bit too much, too soon for the 28-year-old unbeaten fighter, but he could definitely pull it off. He's got a chance. And I'm excited to watch this fight, because if he does win, then he becomes the guy basically at light heavyweight along with Alexander Gvadzik, and that would just be an absolutely killer fight to watch, assuming Anthony Yarde looks good in this fight for Kovalev. And if not, Kovalev stays at the top along with Gvadzik, and I think that's also an intriguing matchup if they can get it to happen. So there you have it, Knuckleheads. That's all I've got for you on this Anthony Yarde versus Sergey Kovalev prediction. Tell me what you guys think about this fight. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Young, fast, flashy guy against another guy with a lot of power. They both got a lot of power. There's a real chance somebody gets knocked out in this fight. And I think that's what makes this fight exciting. It's also almost a 50-50 fight, which is not something we get a lot in boxing. It's something we're used to with the UFC, but not something we get a lot in boxing. Before I let you guys go, Fighters Rep 8 Guerrillas is going to be live right here on YouTube on September 21st. It should start at around 7 p.m. You could expect to see the live stream come on at around 7 p.m. If you're anywhere in Los Angeles or Orange County, please buy tickets at FightersRep.com. The proceeds, the majority of which are reinvested right back into FightersRep.com. Subscribe below. Get your shirt and stuff in the link below, and it'll be much appreciated. I'll see you guys soon, and thank you.